Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking Emperor Akbar's 1568 Siege of Chittor. And we're not just looking at this as your standard historical conquest. No, we're treating this like a gritty, high-stakes chess match filled with mind-bending military engineering and, frankly, brutal pragmatism.
Which brings us to a really fascinating question right off the bat. Why did an emperor, a guy usually renowned for his leniency and diplomacy, completely reject a peaceful surrender and just choose absolute annihilation? It's a massive contradiction, and we're going to unravel it by digging into the specific tactics of this historic campaign.
So, here's our battle plan for today. We'll cover the clash of strategies, engineering the siege, the rejected surrender, the defenders of the fort, the jauhar and final fall, and finally, the legacy of this whole campaign. Let's dive right in.
Part 1. A Clash of Strategies.
All right, picture this. It's late 1567, and a 25-year-old Akbar showing some incredible strategic patience. Instead of just making a mad dash straight for Chittor, he methodically takes out the surrounding rear forts first, places like Gagran and Mandelgard. He's making absolutely sure his army won't be flanked from behind. But in stark contrast, Rana Uday Singh uses a devastating scorched earth strategy. The Rana actually retreats deep into the hills, leaves a massive garrison to defend Chittor, and just lays absolute waste to the surrounding lands. The goal? Make sure the approaching Mughal army literally couldn't feed itself.
And this really illustrates just how extreme the Rana's tactics were. I mean, they left not a single blade of grass standing. This Rajput strategy in 1567 is the exact same brutal, highly effective, scorched earth policy that Imperial Russia would successfully use against Napoleon centuries later in 1812, and that the Soviet Union would repeat against Nazi Germany. The whole point was to just starve Akbar's massive army into packing up and going home.
Part 2. Engineering the Mughal Siege.
Well, starvation didn't work, so Akbar had to resort to a pretty staggering feat of military construction. He quickly realized that sending mindless charges against Chittor's massive 13-kilometer walls was just getting his men slaughtered by devastating Rajput musketry. So he ordered the construction of a sabat. Now, a sabat is essentially an arched, roofed approach trench. Think of it like a giant covered highway leading right to the enemy's front door. Built by highly skilled Mughal sappers, he was designed specifically to protect his troops and his heavy artillery from the relentless hail of bullets and arrows raining down from the fort.
The logistics of actually building this thing are just mind-blowing. Imagine the scene. Construction is happening under such intense, heavy fire that roughly 200 workers were dying every single day. To keep them motivated in what was essentially a suicide mission, Akbar actually paid the surviving workers in literal gold and silver coins. They built thick mud walls that absorbed cannonballs like sponges. And the sheer scale of it was wide enough for 10 men to walk side by side and tall enough for a fully mounted war elephant to pass right through. They were literally building a fortified tunnel just to drag a massive, newly cast siege gun right up to the Rajput walls.
Part 3. The Rejected Surrender.
As that sabbat inched closer and closer, the psychological pressure inside the fort reached an absolute breaking point. But what's really fascinating here is the nuance of what happened next. Seeing the sabbat nearing completion, the Rajput garrison commander, Jaimal Rathore, didn't just blindly order a suicidal charge. He was highly pragmatic. He sent envoys, first Sunda Siladar, then Sahib Khan Rathore, to negotiate. They actually offered to recognize Akbar's suzerainty and pay an annual tribute. The terms were so incredibly good that Akbar's own officers begged him to accept them, but Akbar, he completely refused.
Instead, Akbar added an impossible condition. Rana Uday Singh himself had to personally surrender. Which brings up a really critical question for us. Was this a strategic necessity to completely crush a rival, or was it a deeply personal vendetta? Well, the sources suggest Akbar took this very personally. The Mewar king had been a constant thorn in his side, harboring Mughal enemies and rebels for years. So Akbar, in a highly uncharacteristic move, ignored a generous surrender offer that almost any other king of his time would have jumped at. He chose total annihilation.
Part 4. Defenders of the Fort. Now, the Chittor garrison standing up on those imposing walls was incredibly diverse and utterly lethal. Commanded by Jaimal Rathore, the defense included elite Persia Muslim musketeers, led by a crack shot named Ismail, who were wreaking absolute havoc on the Mughal lines. You also had prominent Muslim Rajputs like Sahib Khan Rathore, negotiating, fighting, and dying right alongside Hindu Rajputs. This completely shatters any simplified one-dimensional view of the battle.
These men shared martial practices and defended that fort together as brothers in arms against the imperial army. Part 5, Jauhar and the Final Fall.
By February 1568, the Mughal artillery and mines had finally breached the walls, and the tipping point was incredibly cinematic. It's almost hard to believe it's real history. Akbar was personally stationed at his sabat. He spots a key commander directing the defense up on the ramparts, wearing this elite special chainmail armor called Thousand Nails. Realizing exactly how important this guy was, Akbar picks up his favorite matchlock musket, a gun he literally named Sangram, which means struggle, takes aim and shoots him. That man was Jaimal Rathore, and with their commander dead, the defense completely shattered.
What followed is definitely one of the darkest aspects of medieval warfare. Seeing that the fort was hopelessly lost, the defenders initiated jauhar and saka. Jauhar is the mass self-immolation by women to avoid the horrors of capture by an invading army. Saka is the men's final suicidal martial charge into battle. And reflecting that incredible unity we talked about earlier, it wasn't just the Hindu defenders. The Muslim Rajput Saib Khan Rathore's family also partook in the jauhar fires while he prepared for the final saka.
As the Rajputs charged out for their final stand, Akbar unleashed absolute carnage to break them. Over 300 war elephants were deployed right into the fort. We actually know their specific names from the texts. Terrifying beasts named Girdabaz, Dokar, Madhukar, and Kadira. And these weren't just standard animals, they were heavily modified, equipped with massive razor-sharp daggers attached to their trunks. They trampled defenders or literally tore them asunder, though some incredible Rajput warriors actually managed to fight back and slice the trunks off these massive beasts before dying.
Part 6. Legacy of the Siege. The aftermath of this single battle permanently altered the entire region. So the crucial point here is how this siege compares historically, and the massive ethical dilemma it presents. When Al-Adin Khilji took Chittor way back in 1303, it took him over 6 months, but he largely spared the 40,000 peasants inside. Akbar, eager to prove his absolute military supremacy, conquered it faster, in just 5 months and 4 days. However, claiming the peasantry had actively collaborated in the defense, Akbar authorized a mass slaughter.
Nearly 30,000 people, garrison soldiers and peasants alike, were killed in the aftermath. It's a horrifying death toll that really underscores the sheer, unyielding brutality of Akbar's victory. He established his regional dominance, for sure, but he paid an incredibly heavy human price to do it.
The historical texts summarize the result with this chilling observation. Anybody who had any doubt about the permanence of the Mughal rule was by now convinced that Akbar meant business. This stunning display of advanced military engineering, combined with absolute uncharacteristic ruthlessness, completely stunned all of Rajputana. The message was loud and clear. Resistance to the Mughal Empire meant total destruction. Which leaves us with a really profound final thought to ponder today. Does the sheer tactical brilliance of Akbar's military engineering, the sabat, the heavy artillery, the strategic patience, justify the massive ethical cost of 30,000 lives simply to pacify a region? It's a dark, complex question about the cold logic of empire building versus its tragic human cost. I hope this explainer has given you the facts and insights to explore that further. Thanks so much for learning with me today.